Hey, did y'all watch that Surviving R. Kelly Part 3? What's good, y'all? Lonnie Appleton here. If you have a couple minutes, I have a couple of messages. Now, I want to have this conversation in the most sensitive space that I can. But we can't keep tiptoeing around these topics expecting any type of change. If we are trying to spare feelings instead of trying to save ourselves. I want to talk about this topic from multiple perspectives. First and foremost, I just thought R. Kelly was out here sleeping with young girls, underage girls. I had no idea he was out here. This was on some torture chamber stuff. And I'm not saying do not receive anything. First of all, watch all parts of this because it's going to be a multiple parter before you run with your judgments. First of all, I received a message from my ancestors about judgment today, but that's not this video. But hear me out. Again, someone has to be able to speak up and speak out without fear of being canceled or whatever, saying the hard truths. Because the hard truths, as long as we keep them shadowed and veiled, we'll never heal from them. But a problem in our society, something that I myself am guilty of, I differentiate a 15, 16, 17-year-old different than a 10, 12, 13-year-old. And I know there's no difference, like I know, but when it all came out in the beginning, I've been rocking with R. Kelly since Aaliyah. And I was Aaliyah's age when it happened, and I was definitely a little girl who looked up to older men. And that's the first issue we need to address. We need to acknowledge that women look better when they're younger. Men look better when they're older. And I'm not excusing perversive mentality. What I'm saying is that's why you typically see older men with younger women, and you see younger women with older men. And so when this whole R. Kelly stuff came out, I was a 14, 15-year-old little girl who sought out older men. Also, R. Kelly is not the only R. Kelly. R. Kelly is the scapegoat. I grew up with R. Kellys. We all have. What's good, y'all? Lonnie Appleton here. We are discussing Surviving R. Kelly. This is part 2. But I'm discussing Surviving R. Kelly part 3 on Netflix. And where I left off in the last video is as a teenager, and this is the argument that I was having with someone in a comment. First of all, in watching that show, it was crazy to see the men in R. Kelly's life actually get on television and speak the mentality that they have. His brother and some other people who worked with him before, they were either in complete denial of who their brother was. They know exactly who their brother was. Or they were speaking in a way that had their brother not got caught, they're excusing the behavior as if they understand. And I get it because I was having a conversation, or not even a conversation, I was trading comments under a video with someone who was saying, you mean to tell me if the snake charmer gets bit, then it's the snake's fault? Implying that the young girl is the snake charmer and it's not the snake's fault for being a snake. But I want to have this conversation from multiple perspectives because I understand them all. And I also want to share my R. Kelly story because R. Kelly is the fall guy. But he represents a larger mentality within our community. Again, I can't speak to other communities because I'm not a part of those communities, but I'm sure this is a worldwide problem. To my knowledge, my grandmother was married at 14 to a grown-ass man, popping out babies, and it was legal. So when we think of what the legal age is of consent, depending on from state to state, it's different. And I want to say bars, but it just doesn't feel appropriate for this conversation. Some states currently today in the United States of America, the age of consent is 16. In other states, it's 18. When my grandparents were coming up, apparently it was 14. So people aren't necessarily respecting the age of consent because it's morally wrong. They're respecting the age of consent because it's against the law. And that's something to pay attention to, because a lot of people have that mentality, but the law says differently. I really want to say bars, y'all. Now I want to get into my R. Kelly story that a lot of us have, but here's mine. The body I have today, I've had since I was 14. I have been stacked like a shit brick house since I was 14 years old. Had the perfect handful of titties, nice apple bottom. I could speak that way about myself because I'm a 42-year-old woman. Part 3. What's good, Jolani Appleton here. We are discussing Surviving R. Kelly Part 3 that I watched on Netflix. And I understand that I can potentially step in some with discussing this topic, but I also know if we can all have an open mind and allow these open and honest conversations to be had, we can probably solve some problems. And I'm not saying the thinking that I am expressing is right. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying that the thinking that I am expressing is reflective of the thinking that's out there, and we keep it to ourselves and we move in silence. But let's have these conversations, because this is the only way that we are going to protect our girls. This is the only way that we are going to protect our boys from being the next generation of predators. In the last video I said I was going to get into my R. Kelly story, but before that I wanted to go back to the conversation where I'm going back and forth, kind of, sort of, not really. I don't go back and forth on the internet with nobody. You are not going to change somebody's life philosophy in 140 characters or less. So I'm going to say what I'm going to say and I'm going to bounce. You could reply, but chances are I will never see it. So you reply for yourself, not for me. But this person says these young girls seek out these older men. Because they're seeking out these older men, they must want them. No, they don't want these older men. They want what these older men represent. And we set this trap for our girls because we say they have daddy issues. How can we never say men have mama issues? We are now okaying and excusing and giving the language and even putting a title on this. So we can't even see that the trap is being set for young girls to seek out older men. Why? Because I have daddy issues. That's why. Why is he with this younger girl? Because she has daddy issues. That's why. First, we need to get rid of that daddy issue, whatever it is. Get rid of that because you don't have daddy issues 99% of the time. What you do have are stability issues. Society has already been framed where a man will get paid X amount of percentage more than a female simply because he has a in between his legs. Sorry. So society is already set up for men to financially have it better than females. And now we're looking at the black woman who's at the bottom of the totem pole. Now we're looking at the black family that is despairingly being raised by a single mother. The single mother who is already struggling to provide for herself, and now she has these children and she's working 2-3 jobs just to earn what one man makes on one job. Part 4.